one thing that I can say about Coach E is she is so passionate about her work. That was what resonated to me the most when I even pitched her. I was so excited, and I love her personality, the way that she delivers her message, and that you can tell, and I hope by the end of this session you guys agree, you can tell how much she cares about this topic and how it's important to her to make sure that she's serving this audience. So, without further ado, thanks again for coming back, Coach E. We're so happy to have you, and we look forward to beginning this conversation with you.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Well, hi
Introduce yourself,
everybody.
Coach.
I'm Coach E, and I own Bigger Fish to Fry Coaching and Counseling. And I do a lot of things within that, but the biggest focus is grief, and getting people help with grief. When I went into my own grief process, there was next to nothing that really worked for me, and I didn't understand why. You're even trying to force yourself into these grief things that may not exist for you. And so I decided to create my own language. I've kind of been in alone, but I'm still riding through it, and people are starting to resonate. It's taken a couple of years to get there, but they're like, yeah, I'm not getting the help I need either. And so now I'm starting to get people that are like, what you're saying is helpful and helping me move to the next level of my life.
All right,
That
thank
that
you.
right there is so powerful. I'm sorry, but that right there is so powerful. There's so many grievers out there, Coach E. First of all, I want to say thank you. The last interview we did together, man, you were my favorite person. I have been looking forward to
Thank
this
you.
interview. The energy that you bring to grief and to life coaching and to women is just fantastic. So let me tell you, I'm so excited for this interview today. It is so true that so many people are out there saying, I can't find the help. I can't find the help. And I don't know the exact time when your loss occurred, but my major loss that I really share a lot about happened in 2006. And I don't even think I was like, we were Googling then. We were using Yahoo, right? And the thing that was out there was these 5 stages. Share a little bit about just clients being out there and not being able to find the resources and the help that they need.
Oh, girl, the stories I get about the 5 stages of grief, and I have to just kind of sit and go, and I listen in my heart longs because I was there. And I don't even think
Yeah.
we were doing everything off Yahoo. We were using it, but we were still going to the library. And so a grief coach, a grief counselor, a grief anything really wasn't in existence. That's when my loss was in 2006. And so I listen to the stories and I feel bad because a lot of people waste the time they have to grieve and to heal on trying to connect to the 5 stages of grief. And so they'll waste 3 to 5 years and say, I'm not any better. I'm not feeling better. This cannot be where I'm going to be the rest of my life. And then I have to ask them, well, what have you been doing? And they're like, well, I was trying to get into this part of the stage. I was trying to meet this stage and I just wasn't getting there. And so that becomes a time waster. What does that have to do with grief at all? It has to do a lot with people that have a loss of someone who has a terminal illness. Amazing. We'll always think she did a phenomenal job at that. But we tried to take the only thing we had at the time in the 60s and we try to put it
Yeah.
for everybody. And it doesn't become a working model for everyone. And so for me, I had to come to understand. And it was a lot of years later. So it wasn't like, oh, I woke up in 2007. Oh, good God, no. I was struggling for about a decade of my grief. And I said, this isn't working. And it wasn't
Yeah.
about crying. It wasn't about anything like that. It was just, I was overwhelmed at wrong times. I couldn't handle certain things anymore that I could handle before. And I came to understand, okay, this is with me the rest of my days. And so that's when
Yeah.
I had to begin to say, I'm going to have to learn to manage my grief. And nobody tells you that. Nobody says it's with you the rest of your life. They led you to believe if you do these 5 stages of grief, you'll magically be okay and get up 2 weeks later and be able to go back to work and heal and be around everybody that used to be in your life and all the same stuff. And that's kind of the I call it the grief killer because when you follow it and listen to it, you end up kind of being in this place that becomes dangerous. It becomes lonely, it becomes suicidal, it becomes way more than you ever thought it would be.
I
Yeah.
want to say
I
I want to
think,
say something
go ahead.
before you even go deeper. The thing that stood out to me is it's going to be with you for the rest of your life. And I think for this topic, I want to sit on that for a second because I don't know if people understand what that looks like. Um, People think when they're in this moment that this is the moment that they're going to feel the entire time. And they don't understand how, as life goes on, so many different things happen, so many different feelings, and you almost get immersed every time and feel like, okay, so is this the new thing, and is this how I'm gonna feel forever? It's like your brain is tricking you to believe that grief is one thing and one way. But me being a student of grief and watching and learning so much, I realized that not only is it different for different people, but for you, the individual, is different for you to be able to experience it. So I wanted to just pause on that comment because I think that most people who are in it, they can't even they don't take the time to look and say, how was I feeling when it first happened versus now that it's been years? Or
Mhm.
I like in our last session you talked about just a week, after a week, what is the difference? And so making sure that we understand that as time goes by, something happens to our grief. And I would like for both of you guys to touch on that.
Okay. Well, I'll jump in real quick on that. Um, it's definitely different for everyone, but I will say what is alike is, and what I've heard, the same experience happened just in different spaces. So you can still be in the same place you were in the beginning of your grief if nobody helps you to understand this can be done a different way. And so that's why you have people 4 or 5 years into their grief going, I'm not feeling better. I have headaches. I have migraines. I'm always depressed. I'm this, I'm that, I'm blah, blah, blah. And so for those people, they're stuck in it. And because they're trying to use a model that doesn't work, they're not getting better with their grief. It changes constantly. I remember I'd be pulling over when a Beyonce song came on, and I'd be in the parking lot, and Beyonce don't really have songs like that, but something would hit me. I think it was To the Left, and it was just like, because me and my husband at the time, before he died, we're about to be in a separation. So all in my head was like, you're living through the things that didn't happen. So my head is like, that would have been us, and to the left, and get your stuff, and oh my God. And so that stuff, you're like, where did that come from? I'm just trying to go to Walmart, man. And so you have to stop and think, I am there because I am not understanding some of the triggers that can come from that. I never thought where our marriage was in relation to being in a problematic space and him kind of dying in the middle of us resolving that. When I would hear certain things, they would trigger the grief to kick in because he's gone. We didn't get to solve certain things. We were still loving one another. We were still raising babies. And so that's where the triggers kick in. And so when you don't have anybody telling you your grief is going to be connected to other things within your life, then you don't know. And you're like, well, where did that come from? And why do I feel this way today? And so it changes every day. And I promise you, you'll smile again, everybody. I promise you it will come, but it comes with work and it comes with time and it comes with understanding what all is my grief connected to, because grief is just not connected to the death. It's connected to many things in your life. And I'll wrap this up real quick. I will also say that if we'll just use me. Nothing wrong with me. My husband was the breadwinner. Becoming a breadwinner, I was not ready to do, y'all. And so that changed the seasons of my life. That changed how everything was going to be. I had one child I had to care for. My other child had passed. Now I have to cover a double funeral. Everything financial felt like a tidal wave was coming at me, a tsunami, whoosh, whoosh, because I had no idea how to do all of that alone. And so people have a lot of things connected to the death of that particular loved one and what they contributed to their life as to why it can be so overwhelming. But I do want people to understand, if you get a chance to watch my original presentation, um, when we talk about grief at the different life stages, it also matters what age you lose the person, how you bounce back, how you're who you're surrounded with and connected to. And so I was 34 when I had the loss. Who wants to be a young widow? That sucks egg balls, y'all. Don't nobody want to be like, I'm a widow, I'm 34. Nobody wants to do that. But you, everywhere you go, you're 34 years old. Oh, here's the death certificate. Oh my God. Because you don't have any choice to move forward in your life. And so people don't know how to respond to someone. Oh my God, you don't have a husband? No, you'll get another one. None of that is what works. So long story short, as Joyce said, you're not gonna be in that same space, But if you don't begin to work on the grief, then in a sense, 4 or 5 years later, you'll still not be in a healing space, put it like that. And so your grief can kind of knock you out with a 1-2 punch without you realizing why it's doing that. So that's why I say, it's going to be there, but you can learn to understand how it's affecting you and what it's connected to.
Wow. Fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. One of the things, and I agree with everything that you said, and one of the things that sometimes I struggle with is when Eric and I are talking. Eric is my sister that lost Austin, and we are at the point where we're making jokes about our grief. And I think sometimes I will like, oh my gosh, I hope people understand that you're gonna laugh when you grieve, and that's what exactly what you're saying is that there will be times where you'll actually tell a joke. You tell a joke about yourself, and you actually laugh. It's called grieving and living. We got to do the same.
It is.
But if we get stuck in the theory of, let's say the five, one of them would be the 5 stages. You could look at yourself 20 years from now and not realize that you haven't looked at that you haven't done any of the work on your grief. One of the things that I know to be true is that grief and loss change the trajectory of your life. You were going this way, and now you have this loss, and all of a sudden you're going this way. And you can make decisions that are wrong or that are detrimental to you from 10 years from now while you're grieving if you don't go after it. Here's the other thing that I know to be true. And this is what Coachy is talking about with the work. It is a specific set of action steps that the griever has to do. We can't just sit back and think that this is going to change. We can't just sit back in this grief because we feel so bad and think and buy into that, oh, well, time heals. That's not it. You got to go after it. You got to go after the grief. You have to get a guide that's going to guide you through, and you got to work through that pain. My girlfriend Sharon of 15 years died about 7 years ago. And on Sunday, I've shared this last couple of weeks. About 3 weeks ago, my daughters, bless their heart, got into a fight, an argument, blah blah blah. And I walked away from the table after a deep discussion, and the only person I wanted to talk to was her because she is the one that I would have called. She's the one that I would have called. And said, girl, kids are driving me crazy. They're getting on my nerves. They're doing this. They're doing that. Not only that, she would have been the one that would have probably picked up the phone and called them. She would have gotten in and worked in it. She was that missing link for me. And so many times we come upon this part where that person always showed up for us, only to realize they're no longer showing up for us. And so, yeah, we can go past it and we can do the work, but there's aspects of it that still will stare at.
And I want to,
Go ahead.
oh, I was just saying, I was looking at the comment below and I had to laugh because I'm a widow and it's been, I don't know, 16 or 17 years. And I can understand that because honestly, losing someone, dating becomes the pits of hell because they all feel like you're going to be in the movie Rebecca and they're going to be living the ghost of the husband past and you can't seem to get them to understand. I'm only telling you I lost my husband so you'll know he existed. But the person they're dating is like, oh God, she's still in love with him. And it's not like that. So I can understand why she might be a widow 15 years later. Or sometimes it's just not something you realize that you want to do again because you're traversing this great walk. To me, it's like you're on this huge mountain and you're never quite getting to the top. And people just don't understand. Why don't you have someone else? Why didn't you have more kids? Why didn't you do that? Because guess what? People in life are not replacements. And you have to consider that when you lose someone. Am I replacing my husband, the caregiver, the moneymaker, or am I trying to have love in my life?
Yeah.
And you can't replace my son. He was just the pinnacle. So you can't replace that kid. Even if I have more children, I've had people that have come to me and they've been very disappointed. And it's so sad when they say, well, I had the baby, but they're nothing like the other child. And I have to point out to them, they're not supposed to be. Every child you have is different, even though they're with the same people. And so they struggle with saying, well, that's not, I had someone say, well, that's not in the stages. No, they didn't tell you to go have a baby to replace another baby. And I'm saying that because unfortunately, that is in some people's heads. It's a sad fact that if I have another child, I'll get my child back. And that's kind of not how life works. So I just want you to understand you can't replace other people with new people and then expect everything to work. And I will say, as you know, in the life stages, and I want to hit this really quick, is, there are certain aspects. You have the physical part of your life, mental, social, emotional, and financial. And people don't understand they're all different. So if you're not where you want to be physically, if mentally you're dealing with grief, socially you're not going out, emotionally you're just a mess, and then financially you have no clue how to bring it all together to find balance, the grief is going to set in and just sit right next to you and go, hey, how you doing? Let's just throw it all in a bucket and just have you struggle. And so you got to understand the grief is a bit of a grief monster. We saw those monsters in the movie, the anger monster, the happy monster. Imagine a little grief monster walking around in green, it was a little face or whatever. I don't know what he would look like. But he knows, if you, like she said, if you're not doing the work, not doing the steps,
Yeah.
not speaking to somebody, you can't win. Because every time you feel like emotionally I'm a little down, the grief is going to kick in. Financially, I can't do this. Then you're going to say, well, if such and such was here, it'd be different. The grief is going to kick in. And so every time what it does is it's a boomerang. It's like a boomerang around to whatever stage you're dealing with. And as you get older, everything changes. 34 to 44 with my grief was totally different.
Yeah.
44 to I'm just 50 has been different. But every 5 years it was different. Every year it was different. And so I had to come to understand, well, what's going on and how can I better manage what's happening? Time doesn't heal anything. Now, I hate to burst a lot of bubbles today. Time heals absolutely nothing. If you think that time will heal all your wounds and you walk around doing nothing, you're still going to have a closet full of your loved one's clothing. You're still going to have a house full of memories. You're still going to have a special room. You're still going to be struggling with trying to love and be with other people. Even within your familial family, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, they're not going to deal with you because you're always talking about the person you lost. And so then you might have the opposite. You might have what I had, where my husband was a very, very large presence. So every time someone saw me, they felt they needed to discuss the presence. I get it. The man was really larger than life. Sweetest guy, would give you everything he had. But that doesn't mean I can walk in your grief. So I want you all to understand that's part of what you have to handle too. You have to put up a boundary and say, I appreciate that you love them, but I am not in a space to discuss that today, because they will take you into a place. You'll go home and you'll be down for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You'll need FMLA to get better. You'll need to figure out, how am I in this place? What am I thinking about? Where did this come from? So you can't carry other people's grief as you're moving through your life. And as you're moving through your life, everything's going to change. You may want a different person to be with. You may want to have more children. You may want to just live a totally different life. And I say go do that, because as you're getting older, things change. When I first lost my husband, I didn't care. I didn't pay bills. I didn't do a lot of stuff because I thought it was stupid. I was like, this is the whole world. This is so stupid. And that's how I felt for a long time, probably 5 to 7 years. In the meantime, ruined my credit, still fighting to this day, almost 15 years later, to get it fixed, because it was just at a time. I lost my husband and my kid. Do you really think I care that you
Yeah.
want to get a payment from me? None
Yeah.
of that matters.
Yeah.
And so that's what you have to understand. If you don't manage it,
Yeah.
it's going to manage you.
Yeah.
And it will affect you greatly as you're older if you don't do certain things.
Absolutely. So, what was your first response with your loss? Like, where did you go out for the help? Where did you go and get your help originally? I want to add to that question also. And then when did you make the moment like, hey, I didn't do this right? Connect back when I didn't do this right and you started with your help, your work all over again.
Initially, I didn't go anywhere. I had my little bachelor's in psychology, thought I knew some stuff, and thought I'm gonna save my son. And I sent him to every freaking camp in America that was about grief. And this kid was getting on planes, trains, and automobiles. And finally, one of the counselors called and said he doesn't want to talk about this, and until he does, you're wasting your energy. And I didn't realize what that would entail, because I thought, I'm saving this kid, I'm doing it all right. And man, that's when I knew I was doing it all wrong. That's literally the moment I was like, not only was I doing it wrong for him, I had been doing it wrong for me. And And people are going to get a little upset. Biblically, it wasn't enough. Oh, the Lord needed another angel. That was not servicing me. I was a little funky with the Lord. It was like, you got enough folks up there. And so I just wasn't there. And finally, this was over almost a decade. My kid sat down with me in his little kid self at the time. And I remember he was probably 13 or 14. He said, I know they're dead, Mom. I know Mom. I know Dad and Bon are gone. And I was like, who are you to talk to me? And man, the kid set me straight. He said, what you're doing isn't working for me. And I'm not going to spend my life crying to make other people happy. I'm doing the best that I can. And I know that you are too. And this is not just their deaths. Our entire life was uprooted and changed. This came from this kid, like literally out of his mouth. And with that, he went up to his room and we just didn't really talk about it. I found a church. It was almost a decade later. And I went to their grief group. And I thought, oh, this is going to suck. Because I just knew so much about the mind. And I went in there, and man, when I tell you, I probably cried every year I hadn't gotten what was needed out of me. And those ladies were so helpful. And then when I heard their stories, I was like, how dare you? How dare you not go get the help that you needed all this time and think the only person that needed healing was your kid? You needed it too. And the lady that ran the group, when she told her story, and I love her because she doesn't mind me telling her story, and it was about her domestic violence mom and dad and how he killed her eventually after 20 or 30 years of the domestic violence. And I was just like, wow, how do you deal with that? And so this woman led this group every week and she told the story and she kept going. And that's when I began to learn, okay, you're going to have this. She has this the rest of her days with her. But if she had kept carrying it on her back the way, initially she was, she wouldn't be where she is and surviving and helping other people. And that woke me up to understand managing it means understanding it's going to be there. It changes over time. You have months, sometimes years where, be honest, it's just not in the forefront.
Yeah.
And then a holiday or something will hit and you'll be like, I had 9 months where I was okay.
Yeah.
And Thanksgiving will come and it's just like, bam, what are you doing? And you don't know what happened, how it happened, and you're in it. And so that's where people are like, how can I stop that? I can never honestly say you will never have a moment where the grief hits you so exponentially hard. I just think that happens over the years, no matter what you do. But I do think you can have a great time as you're healing, that becomes less and less and less. So I knew I was doing it wrong when the kid had to sit me down and tell me you're doing it wrong. And after that, I realized
The
I had
babe,
made changes. Yeah.
out of the mouth of babes. And I think that one of the things that happens is people don't realize that we're not only grieving our present, we're grieving that loss that happened today. We're grieving everything that happened in the past. And speaking on what you were talking about, we're also grieving where they're not in our future. If I knew that, I mean, knowing that he's not going to be able to walk me down the aisle because he's gone, she's not going to be here when I have my baby. I don't think people realize how much of their future has been really changed. I want to start with social. How grief affects us on the social aspect. Can you give I'm going to break each one of them down, but let's start with the social aspect. How does it affect us on the social aspect?
I think when you're in your early stages, you just don't have a clue what you're supposed to do or who you're supposed to talk to. And there are a lot of, I can't think of the word. I hate to use monger, that's horrible. But just kind of grief vampires, maybe. And I say that because they feed off of,
Yeah.
are you sad? You want to cry? You want me to come by? And
Mhm.
you kind of don't know what to do. And you're like, okay, sure. And then when they get there, you feel very uncomfortable because it doesn't feel healing. It
Yeah.
doesn't feel nice. And you're kind of like, what's happening? And so you have to be careful of those people that I call them Wanda from Good Times. I don't know if anybody knows the old Good Time show. And every time someone passed away, Wanda was right there and she was crying and she could turn it on and off and she had her dish of food with her. And she presented to the family, and everybody would even say, "Where's Wanda? Somebody died." You have those people.
Yeah.
And so be very careful of the grief vampire, so to speak, that will feed off of keeping you in that space in the early stages. And that's a big blocker. And yes, people may not want to hear it, but some of those are family members too.
Yes.
So be very careful of that. And socially, what it does is you start pulling away because people only want to hear about it for a week or two.
Yeah.
And then after 2 weeks, I call it the 14-day curse. After 14 days, oh, that's still happening?
It's
Okay.
shorter time than me. I say it's 3 weeks, but you gave it 14 days.
I give it 14 days because literally it's like a vacation and they figure, aren't you done with that?
Yes.
Isn't that over yet? And you're like, I don't even know I'm going to pay my mortgage or my bills or whatever. And they're just like, okay. And so you start to pull away and you say, nobody understands me. Nobody gets me. And then you look up and socially, you don't really have a lot of people around you. And it's very sad because they assume that's all you want to talk about. When all you just want is honestly a quiet friend to go to a movie with or go to brunch with or something simple. But it's in their mind that they have to continue talking about grief and all that when that's not what's on your mind. And so you just kind of pull away and you look up and sadly, you become very antisocial.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can be the loneliest person in the room full of 200 people. So you're there. And then also, you got your grief vampires. Then you have the ones who don't ask you at all. When
Mhm.
all the grievers, their brain needs to hear them say the thing out loud. Then you have the people who don't say it at all. Okay, emotional. Okay, go ahead. Yes, Joy.
So I wanted to say, and I don't know why I'm so blurry, but as long as you guys can hear me, I wanted to say one thing that I learned directly from you, Coach E, from your presentation and the times we've been able to interact is how to understand others. Like I think that we spend a lot of time trying to understand ourselves, and we know that a lot of times nobody can understand how we feel because our grief is so personal. But what I've been experiencing is, like you said, it's people who will never understand, it's people who don't want to understand, and then there's people who do, who want to understand as much as they can so
Yeah.
they could be of support. And I think if that's you watching this, what I learned from Coach E is being able to allow people to tell you exactly what they need, and you just listen and you go off of exactly what they say. And then if it changes, allowing that space for it to change, like how you said your son just came to you and told you, Mom, this is not what I need. This is what I need. And then you, as a mom with your educated self, being able to receive that without saying, no, 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 I know more than you because I'm your mother. And then another example you used in our last talk, which is also available in our program, is how people were telling you how you should celebrate Mother's Day, and how you had that real conversation with your son about, do you mind if I don't celebrate Mother's Day? Like, is it bothering you? And when he gave you permission to celebrate Mother's Day how you want it, you didn't care what nobody else said, because that was he's your child. So that was the only opinion that you needed to be able to move forward in your grief. And so for me personally, how I dealt with that is, so I lost my sister. She was my half sister, and I have a really good relationship with her mother. Although her and my dad are not together, I still have a really close relationship with my stepmom. And I have a picture of her at my wedding where I'm sitting on her lap in my wedding dress. And now that I have actually had the conversation with her about my sister's death and how she feels and the things that she deals with people coming to her saying, like, when they find out, they might have known her for years and didn't know that she lost her daughter because she just didn't have that relationship with them. And when they find out, they look at her and they're like, I would have never known that, because if it was me, I would be this way. And she gets so upset because it's like, you don't know how you would be if it was you. It has not happened to you. But when she said that to me, I hear this little Coach E voice on my shoulder where I'm able to say, I don't understand how she processes her grief. I will never understand it. I'm never going to be in her position, at least specifically the way she experienced it. But what I do understand is that I'm still almost like a surrogate daughter to her, and there's some things that me and her relationship is unique and cool, and I nourish that, and I make sure not to overstep, but I have those open conversations with her to say, hey, can I do this? How do you feel about this? But I include her on things that allow her to say yes, I'm okay, or no, I'm not, and I don't get offended either way. I'm not so emotionally attached where I'm projecting onto her, but I'm actually inviting her to have a say and respecting exactly how she feels.
Yeah, that's really cool. That is really cool. Uh, Coach E, my question for you is how can grief affect us as individuals, our emotional well being? And what strategies do you recommend for us managing just the emotional part? And is there even any management going on? Because that's the main part of what the grief is the ebbs and flows of the emotions, right?
Well, we listen to the whole it comes in like waves, like the ocean and all of that. And that sounds really lovely on Instagram and TikTok, but it's not, it really doesn't.
Mhm.
And what happens is we don't realize situations bring our grief more to the forefront. And so it can be managed. It's not so much that you can necessarily manage how deep you may feel when it happens, but it can be managed because you can say, this is why I tell people when they're working with me, what time of year is it? Is this close to their birthday? Is this close to a holiday that meant something? Um, was this something just between you and him that you her him whoever it might be? What is going on right in this moment? And then they'll go, oh my God, we would go to the Essence Festival every year. Oh my God, the Essence Festival is going on, and they don't realize they had a complete breakdown connected to seeing the advertisements, thinking about, can I go without this person? Can I, that she was my best friend, or that was my sister, or that was whatever. And then it's like they get there and they have a complete breakdown at the Essence Festival and they don't think to know, oh my God. And so what I try to get people to understand is it's more so managing the triggers that lead us to the grief.
Yeah.
So when I look at my year, I can literally stop now and go, I'm feeling really sad today. What is going on? And this was literally, uh, a couple of weeks ago. And I was just like feeling out of sorts. And I stopped and I was like, what is happening? Well, we're coming up on the accident. And the accident was the first week of September. And I don't know, through the whole month of August, me and my son have this little weird dance, and we didn't pay attention until I made an effort to write down everything that meant something to us, including their loss. And my son is very adamant about his grief. He does not celebrate their anniversary. So
Yeah.
I'm hands off. I'm like, okay, cool, kid, you got it. I mean, he does so much better than me, and he doesn't have all the stupid book education. And so I'm like, cool, kid. But we both have come to understand August is a funky month.
Yeah.
And we may not feel anything on the anniversary day, or we may feel it heavily on that day. But by the time September hits, we're just like, oh, we're exhausted.
Yeah.
And so a week later, we can be perfectly fine because for some reason, all of it comes around in that month of August. So if you know something about yourself that you may not think about, that's when it's going to hit you. And all you can do is manage understanding up, we're getting close to such and such date, anniversary, or my niece or nephew's birthday, or we would go dress up every year for Halloween. Whatever it is, when you start to connect the dots, the emotions can be better managed. You won't cry as long. You won't have as many breakdowns. Um, you may even have to take PTO and say, you know what? The next week, I know it's probably going to be rough. I'm going to go ahead and take some time off. They don't need to know why. But when you start to learn to manage the things connected, the emotions are more manageable. Doesn't mean it won't still happen, the crying and the breaking down, but they're more manageable and you can understand how to handle it.
One
If
of
that makes sense to everybody.
Yes, it makes a ton of sense, and thank you. One of the things that I really love about your story with your son is that you allowed him to grieve the way it feels normal to him. Like this is innate it with him, and he's like, "Mom, I'm doing it this way. You do your way, I'm doing my way." But it's almost like he's actually guiding you in the grief as well. Speak
I
to
think so. I watch him and one day he said, "What is crying gonna do?" And tears were just streaming down his face. "What is crying gonna do, Mom? They're gone." And I said, "Crying's gonna do everything you're doing right now. It's gonna unleash your fist. It's gonna release the anger, and it's gonna do what you don't want it to do right now." And he said, "I don't want it. It overtakes me." And so for him, crying connected to the grief means I can't function. And I'm trying to get him to see it can be freeing, but I have to respect where he's at in his grief, that he feels that's overwhelming for him. He's also a male, and males typically grieve in a different way than women do. And so I've learned a lot in listening to him, watching him over the years. And I was on this whole thing of, when I was reading everything, we got to share the grief. If we don't share the grief, son, we're not going to make it together. Oh my God. And he's just like, "Mm, my mom," and I'm just like, "That's what we have to do to make it through." And he goes, "I think the fact that we share a dad that was your husband, my brother that was your son, we can't share anymore, Mom. It's there. We share it whether we want to or not." And so with that being said, I decided to look it up differently and go at it differently, which was, he lost a brother and a father. I hadn't lost those things. I lost a husband and a son, and I speak on this a little bit in my other presentation. And I had to look at why our grief was pretty much different.
Yeah.
When I understood that better, I began to better understand. And we now we can talk about things, we can laugh about things, we can go have that pancake breakfast somewhere and just laugh about his dad and his brother. But when I was trying to force all these things that I thought were what we were supposed to be doing, it was just banging your head against the wall. So I think when people understand whatever emotion you have is okay. It's okay. It's just like when people walk up to Joy's stepmom,
Yeah.
or is she your stepmom? I'm sorry, but I didn't know you lost a child. I have people do that to me too. Well, you're not a walking banner. Do I need a T-shirt? I've lost a kid,
Yeah.
so you can be okay with knowing if I don't walk up to someone and say, "Hey, how are you doing today? I lost my kid, but anyway, what are you going to go for lunch?" That's not really how you live your life. So typically, if you've healed, you've compartmentalized your grief, and you're handling it well, you're moving on. You haven't forgotten anybody. You have things that you're dealing with, but that's just not something you go out and announce all the time. So people are like, "I would definitely let someone know." You'd really spend every waking moment you meet someone telling them you lost your kid. You fall apart. So I
Yeah.
want people to understand today, don't do that. Live your life. If it comes up organically, great. If it doesn't, that has nothing to do with your loss or that you don't love your child.
May I ask you how old your son was when the loss happened? And
He he was 14.
he was 14. So, and it's also, I think what happens with kids is they also don't have all of the mental and financial stress, and they approach things so much purer, even still at 14. And so to see them grieving and the grieving process coming to them is so totally different.
Well, my son was actually 11. He was little.
Yeah.
And his brother was 14. And I will say this, for an 11-year-old, after I guess I had subjected him to all that I had subjected him to, thinking I was helping, he was about 14 when he came and finally was like, "Enough is enough. I'm not getting on another plane, train, or automobile. You can't make me." And so I had to respect that. And the one thing he did say to me, which still sticks to me this day, was that nothing at this point, you know, is going to bring anyone back.
Yeah.
I have that understanding. You
Yeah.
don't have to continue to make me think I don't understand death.
Yeah.
And when he said that, I was just like, "You're right. You have an understanding. I don't need to keep sending you to these places." And we don't have those conversations with our kids. We just assume, I hate the adage, kids are, what's the word, resilient. They're not rubber bands.
Yeah.
And so I won't say it was cookies and cream with him. He wasn't. He was very angry for a long time. And he even said, "I'm angry with God." So when I was trying to do the God thing with him, nope, I'm mad. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And I learned how to be very hands off from him. And I appreciate that from him.
Yeah.
It helped a lot.
So the next question I want to ask is, how does grief affect us financially? You touched on it a little bit, but just on a broad spectrum, I think that a lot of people don't realize the financial aspect of the loss a financial loss or gain, because a lot of times we have grievers that all of a sudden they get this life insurance money. And I have seen grievers go through the life insurance money in under a year. They start, they're in so much pain, they start giving the money away and doing things that they never would have done in their right mind, not their grieving mind.
I People would probably think I'm crazy. I think you shouldn't get money until like a year later,
Mm.
because you have the people that give it away, you have people that don't have a clue what to do with it, you have the vampires that are, I need 50,000, I need 20, I'm starting a business, I'm going to make you the barbecue king or queen, and they don't do anything but go buy a broken down Benz and an iPhone. And so you have all this different stuff that comes at you because now you're rich.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were like, I know you have money. Well, what they didn't know was, because my husband and I had moved out of state and moved back, and he got his old job back, he had lost his tenure at the job. So he didn't get any retirement. And so I was just like, we didn't get anything. Me, why do you think I'm out here working, busting my rump? Because we didn't get anything. And people to this day told me I'm a liar. And I was like, I don't have a reason to lie. When he came back, it nullified his time there. He had 11 years in, which was devastating. I probably should have sued, but this is what grief does.
Yes.
I wasn't in my right mind to
Yeah.
sue, and I missed the opportunity because technically he had only been gone from the job 6 months. He came back on board, and they literally snatched his time. I should have sued for his retirement. Grief will take that out of your brain because you can't think, you're in a fog. And so, long story short, there are people who say, still think I'm lying, still think I'm sitting on money. And people just assume if someone dies, you have money, and you don't.
Mm.
And so a lot of people do get the life insurance and run through it because they want people to just leave them alone. Here, take it. Here, take it. Here, take it. Just go. And then 5 years later, you're going, oh my God, I wish I hadn't do that. Because you're just now coming out of the fog. You're just now getting to your brain back. It could be a year later. It could be 2 years later. And I definitely think, unless there's a great need and if there's a very large sum, let people, the waiting would be good. And I know that sounds crazy, but people just make really bad decisions in that early first year of grief
I agree
with
with
money.
you.
And I will say this financially as well. If you lost a breadwinner, if you lost just your second half that helped contribute to your bills, everything changes. And so you begin to wonder, how can I keep this house? How can I keep the cars? I can't afford all of this stuff without a second income. And that's unfortunately where people make more bad decisions and get in second marriages they shouldn't be in quite yet. They begin to do things they wouldn't normally do. And then you look up and you kind of have, I call it the 5 year sprawl of mess. And
Yeah.
you look up and you're like, okay, I need to divorce this person, sell the house, go get an apartment, talk to my kid, and figure out what we're going to do next. And then you have to clean up what grief caused.
Yes. Wow, that is so huge. And I think that people don't realize it. And I often tell people, don't make any major decisions in your grief. You can't, you're not in your right mind. You're in your grieving brain.
Mhm.
Okay, two things. So I know we're getting towards the end. I want to talk about grief affecting us mentally, our mental capacity, and how grief changes us. But the second thing I want to say is, I have this picture of you walking in with your degree everywhere you went, to every grief class. Like you're like, this is my degree, and I think that's so cute. Okay, how does grief affect us mentally, on our mental status, our mental functioning? How do you think it goes in there?
Oh. Um, what's a term I could use that will knock it out? Because I hate the old 40 book terms that they teach us. I would say, you are mentally defective for a little bit. Your brain is not working. It's not doing what it's supposed to do, and you're trying to be logical in an illogical space.
Yeah.
And so mentally, you begin to live into the lower realms, I call it, the depression, anxiety. I know I had my first panic attack 2 days after my husband and son died, and I was like, what's this? What's going on? I was in the car at the gas station. And so I was like, what? No, I don't do that. What's all that heavy breathing about? And it was just like, whoa. And it was to the point where I had pulled off from the pump, and it felt like someone was standing on my chest, and it went full fledged. And I called a friend, and I was like, "What is going on?" And I knew I wasn't having a heart attack, and I was like, "I don't panic. That's not Eleanor." And so they were like, "Yeah, I think you're panicking." And I had, at this point, we hadn't had the funeral yet. We hadn't got to. We were still fighting with the family about, oh, if you do this, I won't show up, and oh, all the crap that the family puts you through, even though they're paying Zippo. And so I called my dad, and he's passed away. And I will tell you, the way I managed the grief of my dad is amazing versus what I did with my husband. And he said, I don't know what that is, but I'm going to sit on this phone till we figure it out. And to this day, I would say I maybe have one every few years now, thank goodness. But I would never say there's not a piece of anxiety with me from grief, because it is there. And he sat on the phone, and he did what fathers do. He just talked to me. He said, my generation didn't have that. I don't know what this is, and I don't know what to do. And he says, I'm just going to talk to my daughter. And as he talks, I de-escalated. I just kept de-escalating. And then he said, come home now, get to your house, get away from the gas station. And I did, and I was okay. And every time that would happen, I would call my dad. So when he passed, here we go, another piece of grief trigger. What am I going to do when I have a panic attack now? My dad's not here. And so grief connects us to so many things in our lives that we don't even understand. And so emotionally, you're going to get in those places. You're going to feel depressed. You're going to feel anxious. You're going to feel overwhelmed. You're going to feel like getting in the bed and not getting out. Tell someone. And yes, you're going to feel at times like you don't want to be here. Tell somebody. And I always tell people there is no shame. It does not make you crazy. It does not make you suicidal. It just means in that moment you didn't want to be on the earth anymore. And so you have to think about, what do I need to do when I have those thoughts? Always get help. Always get help. That was one of the things that I listened to myself every time on. I would check in with my kid. He'd be like, get out of here, I'm fine. But for me, I would always be like, something may not be right today. I don't care how bad it is. You may not feel like you're going to do a darn thing. Call the suicide hotlines, call the 988 numbers, call whatever you need to do, and just say, I just need to talk to somebody. Go get the counselor. There's nothing wrong with the counselor. I don't know why we just feel like we can't have the counselor. Go get the counselor. I would say get a counselor that understands how to talk to you about living with your grief versus the counselor that wants you to go through stages and then you're going to be okay. That's not going to work. So anyway, long story short, emotionally, you are going to be a mess. You're going to be in a pit for a little bit, and you will have to find a way to pull yourself up and out. And you need to learn about grief. You need to read about grief outside of her stuff. That's great. Yeah, Kubler Ross, we love you. Learn about it from other people that say that didn't work, and read about what they did to get to the next step. And you are going to have some after effects. So for me, anxiety and panic attacks were new, and they're still a part of my life to this day. I accept them, I work with them, and I think I do okay with them.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to say to Lisa, thank you so much for your share. We definitely saw your share. And yes, there is a lot of times that we wouldn't be able to do the funeral without the generosity of others and being there to hold us up. Thank you so much. And really sorry that now this is something that Coach E could even talk about too. The loss of a career, that's connected to really changes us financially for sure. But before we go there, I want to talk to you. I want you to remind us of the 3 C's again.
Oh Lord, where's my brain at today? I know that can hit me. I should know because that's my thing. But give me a minute to think about that, and I'll answer the other question.
I'll tell you with a surprise question. While you're thinking about it, I'm going to still talk to Lisa. Lisa, it is so true that many people have to. Sometimes people have to help us through the financial responsibility for a funeral, and it adds a second layer onto the grief. Worrying about where I'm going to get this money from to bury my very beloved husband can be so devastating. And then the worry and the concern that comes on with that. So my heart to you, Lisa, and thank you for your share.
Okay, my three C's.
Yeah,
If we're
girl.
ready, my brain can fit. Was choose, connect, and communicate. And what does that mean in a nutshell? You need to choose who you're around. You need to choose what you want to be a part of your healing, and you need to choose how you're going to move forward in your life. Um, then, of course, there is connecting. What are you connecting to? When you have this loss, who are you feeding into? Who are you connecting to? Is it a pastor? Is it a grief leader at a group? Or are you only connecting to people that are going to kind of keep you in the same thought process? What are you connecting to? And you have to think about that. And even what are you connecting to in the family? So, how are you connecting to control the emotions, to handle the intensity of them, and especially the grief connected to them? And then communicate, which is communicate what you want. Communicate your boundaries. I know you can find, these online as well. I call them mine because for me, it was what I really did in life. I didn't find it on the internet or anything like that. I had to start looking at who was around me, what I was doing, what I was connected to, and it wasn't very good. And so communicate what your boundaries are. Communicate what you're willing to discuss. And I'm going to tell you all something. Some of your grief is private. It should never be talked about with other people. There are things I'll never discuss with my son because they're private, and I'm quite sure there are things he won't discuss with me because they're his private memories as well. There's tons of other stuff we talk about, but you have to communicate your boundaries, communicate what you want people to understand, and communicate that your grief is not an open book. You're not a standing person that every time someone sees you, I can just come talk to you about your dead husband and your dead kid. No, 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 we're not going to do that. I have to go to work every day. I have to live every day, and I have to go home with this grief. You dump your grief on me, and you go home and don't think twice about it. And this is usually from people that have not had a significant loss in their life yet, so they don't know what it means to just come dump what they want to say on you. So you have to immediately. That could be one of those connections that you cut off. But communicate the boundaries consistently. The more you communicate how I live, how I'm going to be, when I'm comfortable discussing my grief, the better off you are in managing your grief.
So amazing. Love those. Thank you so much. All right. I want to say thank you so much, Coach E. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for the wisdom that you just give us. You don't understand. In this hour, you give us so much wisdom, and it's just so cool to be able to sit live on Facebook and talk about grief. Man, could you imagine where you and I would have been in 2006 if we had stuff like this?
Oh my God, it would have been so different just to sit and hear the stories and just go, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
It would be so different. And I do want to say really quickly, as we're talking about life stages, because I didn't talk as much about that as I probably should have. But just remember, your grief changes as you change. We change literally every 5 years of our life. And we have a different thought process. We have different things that we're concerned with. We have different things that we understand. And I will say with grief, what happens is you start saying, it's there. It happened. I'm okay. I'm going to be okay. And then one day, we'll see each other again, however that happens. So be okay in knowing that you're not losing their thoughts. You're not getting rid of anything. As time changes with you and you do the work, the grief will begin to heal with you. If you don't do the work, the time that heals all wounds things doesn't work. So you got to do the work to get to the different stages to be okay.
I
And
actually have questions about the stages, but everything you were saying was so amazing, the life changing stages. But we just went into other areas.
Yeah, I'm
Joy,
sorry, y'all.
no,
My bad. I should have been stuck to the left stage.
no, because this is what people needed to hear. The universe put out what we needed to hear, and somebody needed this message today. So definitely, Joy, let's share about the program, and then
well, before we switch over, let people know how to reach you, Coach E, how to work with you.
You can reach me at www.biggerfishtofrycoaching.com. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram as Bigger Fish to Fry Coaching across all platforms. Um, just shoot me a DM. I know right now I'm in the middle of kind of redoing some stuff, so it's easier to DM me and have me hit you back. And believe me, I will in a very timely manner. So that's I'm there.
beautiful.
All right. And so I want to leave it off with this. I think you bringing those three C's up was a big was really important, because no matter where you are, what stage of life you're in, or what stage of life the person you're trying to support is in, you can probably use that choose. Is choose. What's the second C?
Connect.
Connect and communicate. Choose, connect, and communicate. And I think that those apply even if you're talking to a young person, if you're talking to a young adult, if you're talking to someone. So my grandmother, she's at the stage of her life where a lot of people around her are passing away because she's in old age. And so even though to someone younger that might seem normal, to her it's her peers, her siblings, her parents, all of the people that were the foundation of her growing up, she's having to say goodbye to. She's having to process those losses. And it wasn't, it was because of these type of sessions is what helps me to empathize better, for me to be able to not trigger her or dismiss her feelings, because I now have the opportunity to understand. So with Gone Too Soon, the way that it works is that these presentations are short, 15 to 20 minutes, but they're so actionable. They actually are teaching you some type of strategy. I know you heard some of both Coach E and Sharon's ninja moves that they share when we have these hour-long talks, but the presentations are specifically meant for you to walk away with some tools to be able to address whatever the topic is. And so in the Gone Too Soon retreat, Coach E's topic was processing life at different stages. But every Wednesday, we're here talking about all of the presentations that took place. And we have actually next week, we're going to be talking about, let me remember, because we had a little switcheroo this time. We have relief versus recovery, I believe, is next week. And so making sure that you understand that all of these topics, you never know when, like you said, the universe is saying you need to be here, you need to learn it, but we want to make sure that you get the fullness of the opportunity. And in order to do that, we have these 20 plus presentations, the workbook, because we know that there's different learning styles that exist. You might not only want to just listen to us and watch us on screen, but you want to be able to write things down and fill in the blanks and keep your notes. So we have a printable workbook. We have the journal club where you can continuously process as life goes on the things that you're experiencing and your connection with your loved one. And then we have the virtual companion Gigi, who's actually sending you those reminders so you know which video to watch and what presentation is coming up for our live discussion. And all of that for just $147, one-time payment for you to be able to get access to the full course and all of those presentations and even the replays for this live round that we are hosting right now. So I hope to have to see you guys join us in the Gone Too Soon retreat. Let me see. I think we have a comment. We have Lisa, who was with us today. She said, "Thank you all for your wise info." Thank you, Lisa. I know you've been very supportive in the community, the Facebook group that we've been going live into. So thank you for inviting everybody who may need it. One thing is hard that we all can agree, it's hard to get people tuned in to
Yeah.
listen and learn about grief, but you guys make it. I look forward to the Wednesday sessions that we've been having, and I really understand the importance of what we're doing. So I thank you guys too, the grief specialists, for your role in making this all possible.
And I
Thank
want to
you.
say really quickly, don't give up on these because I think they're going to explode. It's a little time, but you would be surprised how many people really need this and are looking for this.
Yeah.
And I don't know why there's such a fear of getting help with grief in a different manner. But I think this is going to, I think by next year, you're going to be taking everything by storm. So, yeah.
Thank you. And that's only because of people like you.
Oh, thank you.
Bringing it to the table and just laying it out there. And that's what's so important. Thank you.
All right, so see you guys next week, same time, Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern time. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.